The first time Marcus Thompson understood what it meant to be other was on a playground in Chicago at age 7. Before that moment, the world had been a simple place of primary colors and uncomplicated friendships. He'd been playing basketball with neighborhood kids when an older boy had pointed at him and said something that changed everything. Words that made the other children step away from him like he carried some invisible disease. 20 years later, standing in the gleaming lobby of Global Finance Corporation in London, that memory still burned in his mind. Marcus adjusted his tailored suit and checked his reflection in the polished marble wall. Executive Vice President of International Development. He'd climbed higher than anyone expected, certainly higher than that boy on the playground would have imagined possible. "Mr. Thompson, they're ready for you in the boardroom," said his assistant, Emma. Marcus nodded, gathering his presentation materials. Today's meeting could change everything. A billion-dollar development project in Lagos that would transform an underserved community into a thriving business district. He'd spent months ensuring the proposal included affordable housing, education facilities, and job guarantees for local residents. This wasn't just another corporate venture, it was personal. The boardroom fell silent as he entered. 12 faces turned toward him, 11 white men and 1 white woman. Marcus had grown accustomed to being the only black person in rooms like this, though the weight of it never fully disappeared. "Gentlemen and Ms. Chen," he began, his voice steady and confident. "Thank you for the opportunity to present the Lagos Renaissance Project." For 30 minutes, Marcus outlined the vision with precision and passion. The numbers were solid. The impact assessments were impeccable. When he finished, there was a moment of appreciative silence. Then Charles Whitman, the silver-haired CFO, cleared his throat. "Impressive presentation, Thompson, but I'm concerned about the workforce development components. Couldn't we reduce costs by importing skilled labor instead?" Marcus felt a familiar twist in his stomach. "The commitment to local employment is central to the project's sustainability. This isn't charity. It's sound business. Communities with economic stability become long-term consumers and partners. I understand your personal interest in these social aspects," Whitman said with a thin smile, "but we need to focus on shareholder value first." The implication hung in the air. Personal interest. As if Marcus couldn't separate his identity from business decisions, as if his insights into underserved communities were some kind of bias rather than valuable perspective. "My interest is in creating a project that succeeds long-term," Marcus replied evenly, "and the data supports this approach." The meeting ended with superficial agreement to explore all options, but Marcus knew his vision was being quietly dismantled. Walking back to his office, he felt the familiar duality of his existence, being essential enough to represent the company in developing markets, but not trusted enough to define how that representation worked. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister Amara in New York. "How did it go?" Before he could respond, Emma appeared at his door. "Mr. Thompson, the CEO wants to see you." 20 minutes later, Marcus sat across from CEO Richard Harrington, a man whose handshake always felt like a competition. "Marcus, you've done extraordinary work on Lagos," Harrington began, leaning back in his leather chair. "But the board feels we need to take a more conventional approach." "Conventional meaning what, exactly?" Marcus asked, though he already knew. "We're reassigning oversight to the European development team. You'll still be involved, of course, but in a consulting capacity." Marcus felt heat rising in his neck. The European team has zero experience in West African markets. This makes no business sense. It's not personal, Harrington said, not meeting his eyes. Just a strategic realignment. But it was personal. It always was. That evening, Marcus stood at the window of his Canary Wharf apartment, watching lights reflect on the Thames. His phone rang. Amara again. "They took me off the Lagos project," he said, without preamble. His sister's sigh carried years of shared understanding. "So what are you going to do about it?" It was their mother's question, the one she'd always asked when they faced injustice growing up. Not, "How do you feel?" but, "What will you do?" 3 days later, Marcus requested a meeting with Harrington and the board. He brought no presentation, just himself and a single document. "I'm resigning," he announced, placing his letter on the table. "And I'm taking the Lagos project with me." Confused looks circulated around the room. "Thompson, you can't just—" Whitman began. "Actually, I can. I've secured independent financing from Adeyemi Partners. They've committed $1.2 billion to the project as I designed it, with local employment guarantees intact." "That's impossible," Harrington said. "Adeyemi wouldn't—" "I spent the weekend in Lagos with Folake Adeyemi. She sees the vision exactly as I presented it to this board. The government has already approved the transfer of development rights." The silence was deafening. "You'll be competing against us?" Whitman finally said. Marcus shook his head. "Number, I'm doing what you wouldn't. There's a difference." 2 years later, Marcus stood on a rooftop in Lagos, overlooking the first completed phase of Renaissance Center. Below, hundreds of local employees entered and exited the gleaming complex. The educational facilities were already at capacity, and the residential units had transformed the neighborhood. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Global finance. Stock falls as African projects underperform. Marcus put the phone away and smiled slightly. Some lessons came harder than others. Folake Adeyemi joined him at the railing. "The Technical Academy graduation is tomorrow. 67 students, all local, all with job offers." Marcus nodded. "My mother would have loved to see this." "She does," Folake said simply. "Through you." Later that night, Marcus video called Amara, panning his camera to show the Lagos skyline. "Worth resigning for?" she asked. "Every day," he replied. "But it shouldn't have been necessary." "No," she agreed. "But this is how change happens. Not all at once, but person by person, choice by choice." As Marcus ended the call, he thought about that boy on the playground so many years ago. He wondered where he was now, if he remembered what he'd said, if he'd learned anything in the decades since. Marcus hoped so. He hoped that somewhere, that boy, now a man, was confronting his own prejudices, making better choices. Because while Marcus had built something remarkable in Lagos, the true Renaissance needed to happen in boardrooms and playgrounds and hearts around the world. And that work was far from finished.